What is going on, everybody? Zach Rana here, and I actually wanted to share this video with you guys that I made for my students at my school in honor of Black History Month and Women's History Month, which was February and now March. I created this video for my students to share about really influential male African-American scientists and two female African-American scientists and the contributions they made, how they fought through adversity, and essentially paved the way for many other scientists of the future generations. So, without further ado, I'm gonna roll the video. I hope you guys enjoy it. What is going on, everybody? It's Mr. Rana, the 7th grade science teacher, and I am here to talk to you about some very influential African-American scientists of the previous generation. I hope that by sharing this video with you, it will inspire you as it has inspired me, hearing their stories, how they faced oppression, overcame it, never gave up, and have set the path for the future generation. We are going to start with a scientist named George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was born enslaved and went on to become one of the most prominent scientists and investors of his time, as well as a professor at the Tuskegee Institute. Carver was born most likely in 1864, enslaved in Diamond, Missouri during the Civil War years. Like many children of the enslaved, the exact year and date of his birth are unknown. He was one of many children born to Mary and Giles, who were an enslaved couple owned by Moses Carver. Moses and his wife Susan decided to keep Carver and his brother James at their home at the time, raising and educating the two boys. Susan Carver taught George to read and write since no local school would accept black students at the time. The search for knowledge would remain a driving force for the rest of Carver's life. As a young man, he left the home to travel to a school for black children 10 miles away. He was then accepted into Highland College in Kansas, but was later denied admittance once college administrators learned of his race. Instead of attending classes, he homeschooled himself, where he continued biological experiments and compiled a geological connection. Carver then moved to Ames and began his botanical studies the following year at Iowa State. He excelled in his studies and completed his Bachelor of Science degree. He then continued on to graduate studies, including intensive work in plant pathology at the Iowa Experiment Station. In these years, Carver established his reputation as a brilliant botanist and began the work that he would pursue the remainder of his career. Carver went on to become a decorated professor and inventor, inventing over 100 uses for the peanut plant, and is overall an extreme inspiration for the way that he overcame adversity. He was initially told that he wasn't even allowed to go to college because of his race, but that did not stop him. He continued to carry out experiments, build up his reputation, and then actually got into and completed his university studies and then went on to become a professor. So I hope that that story inspires all of you to show determination, because to me, the #1 quality I see in George Washington Carver is determination. He never gave up. He kept going even when other people said he couldn't. The next scientist I will be talking about is a woman named Mary Jackson, who was featured in the movie Hidden Figures, for those of you that have seen that. Mary Jackson was born and raised in Hampton, Virginia. After graduating from high school with the highest honors, she earned a dual degree in mathematics and physical science at the Hampton Institute. In 1951, she started working at the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, where she was a member of its West Area Computing Unit. She then went to work for engineer Kazimierz Zarnecki, conducting experiments in a high-speed wind tunnel. He suggested that Jackson enter a training program that would allow her to become an engineer. Since Virginia's schools were still segregated, she had to obtain special permission to take classes with white students. Jackson ultimately completed the necessary courses, and in 1958, she became the first black female engineer at NASA, which had been established earlier that year. She worked as an aerospace engineer for some 20 years. Much of her work was centered on the airflow around aircraft. Despite early promotions, she was denied management level positions, and in 1979 she left engineering and actually took a demotion to become manager of the women's program at NASA. In that post, she sought to improve the opportunities for all women at the organization. Mary Jackson's story to me represents pride in the way that she presented herself, always worked her hardest and performed at the top. And even when she was denied positions of management, she actually was willing to take demotion so that she could work for the betterment and the equality of all women. A third African-American scientist I want to talk about is Missy Jemison. Missy Jemison is the first African-American female astronaut, and in 1992 she flew into space aboard the Endeavour, becoming the first African-American woman in space. Jemison was born in Alabama and was the youngest child of a roofer and carpenter and an elementary school teacher. She received a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Stanford University in 1977. When she graduated, she enrolled in Cornell University Medical College and became a doctor. She worked as a general practitioner and enrolled in the Peace Corps as a medical officer for Sierra Leone and Liberia, where she also taught and did medical research. Once she returned to the United States 4 years later, she made a career change and decided to follow a dream she had nurtured for a long time. She applied to NASA's astronaut training program. Jemison was one of 15 candidates chosen from a field of over 2,000. On June 4th, 1987, she became the first African-American woman to be admitted into the NASA astronaut training program, and after more than a year of training, became the first African-American woman astronaut to go to space. Following her historic flight, Jemison noted that society should recognize how much both women and members of other minority groups can contribute if given the opportunity. In recognition of her accomplishments, Jemison has received a number of accolades, including several honorary doctorates. Missy Jemison's story is another one of trailblazing, pioneering, being the first African-American woman to go to space. I find it incredibly inspiring how strong these individuals were and how they paved the way for future scientists of our generation. That is going to conclude the video. I'm just finishing editing this up. I thought it would be cool to show all of you this video as well. Put a lot of effort into it. I was pretty proud of it. So I was like, you know what? I made this for my students, but I might as well show it on my YouTube channel as well. Next week, we'll be going back to some regular teaching content. I have a video coming up about habits that I have started because of quarantine and that I picked up in 2020 and now into 2021. So that video will be coming out. Morning routine, nighttime routine will all be coming out. I will also be posting my first update this Wednesday of how my cut has been going for my bodybuilding competition. If you haven't seen the video about that yet, watch last week's video about how I'm going to be competing and what that's going to entail. But we got a lot of exciting things that I'm working on. Can't wait to show you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.